And I am back, folks. All right, so our first, or I guess I should probably introduce our story. It is going to be the story of Samson, part 1. So come back next week for part 2 because it gets interesting. But the story of Samson actually doesn't start with Samson. It starts with the Israelites. And the Israelites were displeasing God again. And so the Lord decided that he was going to have the Philistines control them for, it ended up being about 40 years. And there was a man by the name of Manoah and his wife, and they couldn't have kids. And so, much like Mary in the story of baby Jesus, an angel came to Manoah's wife and said, "You are to conceive a son, but be careful. Do not drink wine or beer, and don't eat anything unclean. And make sure to never cut his hair, because he will be a Nazarite to God and start to save Israel from the Philistine power." And so the woman, she was so excited. So she ran to her husband and said, "We're going to have a baby." And Manoah prayed to God and asked to see the man sent so that they can learn what to do and how to raise this son. And so God answered his prayers. And when this man showed up again, Manoah's wife ran to him and said, "He's back, he's back, he's back. Come, let's go talk to this guy." And so they did, and he said, he asked, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" And the angel responded, "I am." And then after that, Manoah asks, "When your words come true, what will the boy's responsibilities and mission be?" Which is a very important question. And so the angel responded to Manoah and said, "Your wife needs to do everything I told her. She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, or drink water, or drink wine or beer. And she must not eat anything unclean. Your wife must do everything I command her." And Manoah was so excited and so grateful to this man that he had asked him to stay and said, "We'll have goat for dinner. It'll be great. We're going to have a celebration." And at this point in time, Manoah didn't know that this guy was an angel, actually. So the angel looked at Manoah and said, "If I stay, I won't eat your food, but I want you to prepare a burnt offering altar to the Lord." And so Manoah did that, and lost my place. Manoah made a burnt offering and asked the angel what his name was. He said, "What is your name, so that we may honor you when your words come true?" And then the angel actually didn't tell him his name. And so once they set up the burnt offering, a flame went up from the altar to the sky. So from the ground all the way up to the sky, up to the heavens. And Manoah and his wife dropped to the ground because they didn't realize that it was an angel. But at that moment, they knew that it was an angel that had came to see them. And after that, shortly after that, actually, Manoah's wife gave birth and named him Samson, and he grew up and the Lord blessed him. Now, moving on a couple of years, Samson went down to Timnah and saw a Philistine woman, and he went back and told his father and mother, "I have seen a young woman and I want her as my wife." And his parents were like, "Can't you find somebody who's among, us or your relatives, Israelite maybe? Or do you have to go after the Philistine women? Like, are you sure about that? Is that something you want to do?" And Samson told his father, "Get her for me because I want her." And his father at that point in time didn't know that this was from the Lord, but Samson's desires were sent from the Lord. And so Samson went to the town with his father and came to the vineyards, and suddenly a lion came up roaring at them. And the Spirit of the Lord took control of Samson, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with how big a lion is, but they are gigantic. They are huge, and they are super strong. And so the fact that Samson was able to rip it in half with his bare hands is crazy. It's crazy strong. So after that, they continued on to the town, And on their way back, the carcass, the dead lion, it was full of honey and bees. And so Samson actually picked some up and started eating it. And when he got home, he gave some to his parents, but he didn't tell them that it was from the lion. And so his father, shortly after that, went to visit the woman that Samson wanted, and they prepared a feast. And um, when the Philistines saw Samson, they brought 30 men to sit with him. And Samson asked them a riddle. He said, if you can explain to me during the 7 days of feast and figure out, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 change of clothes. But if you can't explain it to me, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And so like, oh yeah, tell us your riddle. What's your riddle? Bring it on. What's the best you got? And so he said, out out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. And after 3 days, they were unable to explain the riddle. And on the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, persuade your husband to explain the riddle to us, and or we're going to burn your dad's house down. And so Samson's wife came to Samson crying, and she said, you hate me, you don't love me, you told my people this riddle and you haven't explained it to me. And he said, look, I haven't even explained it to my own parents, so it's not just you. And on the seventh day, right before sunset, the men in the city said to him, what is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than a lion? And Samson responded, if you hadn't plowed with my young cow, you wouldn't know my riddle. And then the Spirit of the Lord took control of Samson again, and he went down to Ashkelon and actually ended up killing 30 of their men and took their linens. And then Samson returned home, and his wife was given to one of the men who accompanied him because she was deceitful. And that is where part one of our story today ends. And then next week is going to be a fun one, Samson's Revenge. And I'm excited about that one too. So, yeah.